All right, so for today's class, we will be focusing on Git and GitHub. All right, so please, just to clarify things, this has nothing to do with Python programming, right? So, but it's a necessary software that we as developers need to actually use. And over the period of this class, we are going to see and understand what exactly is Git and what exactly is GitHub, and what they are meant for, and how we should use them, and why we should also use them. All right, so real quick, I would so that we don't switch between slides, of course, I would dive straight to our VS Code, and then whatever important information that that we need to hear, I'll put it down there on VS Code, and this time around, I would make sure that we get hold of that folder. Right, I've not been able to send that folder, as like I said earlier, that I would actually send it for us. So, but not to worry. This at the end of this class, I would zip it up, put it, and then show us that URL before we leave for before we end this call, right? So going straight to VS Code. We already know that our source code is available on this folder here, right? On the KodeCamp 5.0 code folder. So I'll open up this folder in VS Code, and we discuss in details exactly what Git and GitHub is. All right, so most of us may have already heard of what GitHub is. All right, most of us may have already heard of it before, or you've heard of from someone's mouth, or from another developer saying that their code are available on GitHub and rest of those things. So, the purpose of this class is to make sure that we understand what exactly is this thing. So, what I will do is because since GitHub has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with Python, or should I say, it's not Python specific kind of thing. So what I will do is I'll create a text file, right? Because it's mostly going to be some theory, and some few points. So I won't be creating a Python file for this particular class. So what I will do is I will create a text file, and then we will use that text file to explain what exactly is Git and GitHub. All right, so I'll put a file here. I'll call this Git and GitHub .txt. All right. So what exactly is Git and GitHub? What exactly is Git and GitHub, or what's the difference between them? Right. So Git is basically a distributed version control system. Right. So basically, what do I mean? It is basically a tool. So let me put it down. So Git is basically a distributed version control system. That's exactly what Git is. Please keep in mind that there's a difference between Git and GitHub. At this point, I am basically explaining what exactly is Git, right? When we get to GitHub, I'll tell us how these two actually connect and interact with each other. But Git, on the other hand, is a tool that we use for version control. So basically, what that means is that that everyone, all right, or should I say whoever uses this has the ability to keep track of changes in their file over time. So take for instance this file that we are having now, all right. So at this point in time, the current changes in this file is what we've written so far, all right. But then with GitHub, if we apply more changes to this file, we can do what we can simply keep track of those changes, and as well roll back if need be, right? So let's say that over the period of time, I add some information again here. Let's say I am a male, right? And then at some point I do not find this valuable, right? So with it, I can simply roll back these changes from where we are to where to our previous state, which was what just this simple explanation of what Git is, right? So that's basically, that's basically the purpose or the usefulness of Git, right? So it's a version control system, right? It's a version control system. That's basically what Git is, and apart from it apart from Git being a version control system, it also allowed, right? So it's basically again, it basically it basically it allows developers to track changes in their code, because GitHub is mostly used by developers, right? But it doesn't mean that you can actually put in any other files or that doesn't really mean that you can actually keep track of other files using Git. But then people mostly use it to keep track of their source code, right? That's the whole purpose of it. But then it doesn't still mean that you can keep track of every other files, and such as like text documents or images and rest of them, your Microsoft and other stuff. Okay, so that can still be achieved with Git, right? You can actually do that with Git, but then the whole point of using GitHub as a developer is to do what is to keep track of the changes. So it allows developers to keep track of changes in their code, right? So in their code, right? So and of course, this is necessary for all developers, because as we all know that that if you build a system now, you have to do what you have to keep improving that system, and at some point, every developer will always run into a box, right? There are some new updates that you include in an existing system, and it somehow does what affects some part of that system, right? But then with GitHub, you can do what you can actually just roll back that changes to the previous state, and then come back and do what and correct whatsoever needs to be corrected, or fix whatsoever needs to be fixed, right? So that's one of the benefits, right, of using Git. And also it supports a collaboration, right? So it's very useful, right? Very useful collaboration, right? So sorry about this, like it's going to be less of code and more of theoretical, or should I say explanation, and something out of something out of Python. But of course, it's very useful. It's very useful for all developers. We cannot. It's impossible. It's impossible for us to succeed in the development field without Git and GitHub, right? So you have to forgive me if in today's class we don't actually write any Python related code, except for the tasks that we intend to provide solution to, right? So Git is actually very useful for collaboration, right? For collaboration, as it allows as it as it allows developers to work to work together to work together in a single project, right? So you can actually work with the help of Git. All of us here can do what can simply work in one specific project and then share our source code, right? So it's easier with Git compared to what we've been doing before now. That is using Google Drive, where we just send in our file there, and then and then basically someone can only view or comment. But with Git and GitHub, there is what we call branching. Don't worry about that. When we get to that point, we talk about branching. We talk about branching. All right. So what again I should need to know again is that, of course, I talked about rollback. Mean that every developer, right, every dev have a copy, have a copy, have a copy, basically a full copy, right? Have a full copy of their product. Have a full copy of the repository. So you don't have to worry about what repository is. I'll explain in a second what repository is, right? So basically, every developer have a full copy of their repository. So basically, it means that every changes that have happened in that folder, from the beginning of that folder all the way to the current state of that folder, you have a copy of it. So it means that you can simply roll back to any version of your choice. You can roll it back to the very beginning of that source code, right? Without necessarily doing Control Z, 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 that doesn't really help us, right? Especially if you start including so many files, and then I remember that if I should close my VS Code and come back, and then probably I want to take um I want to actually undo whatever I've done so far up to this point, right? What I will do is to do Control Z, right? Yeah, but if you close this file and come back, you can't do Control Z again, right? That's where Git makes things much easier. So it doesn't really matter if your text editor is still open or not. You can still do what, roll back to whatever version that you see fit. So you can roll back to whatever version that you see fit. So that's basically what Git is, right? So the key point what is that it's a tool, right? It's a tool for what, for version control, right? For version control. That's basically what it is. But then how can we now use Git? Yeah, right? How do you now use Git? How do you use Git? How do we use Git? Right? How do we use this for what? For tracking of our file, or for keeping track of our files? So it's easy, right? It's easy depending on your operating system, right? So if you're on Windows, you can simply go to your browser and just search for for download Git, right? To download Git, right? And this should give you a version. This should take you to a URL where you can simply just download it. So this is the URL for downloading it. So depending on your operating system, you have to go with whichever one it's good you're actually using. If you're on Windows, then you just click on Windows. They to take you to a point where you can download it and install it. Right. So but one thing I want to I want to put down is that if during I already have Git installed on my PC, right? So, but then basically what you want to do is it's a very straightforward installation process. So you just want to click on next, and then install, right? So you just after you've gotten to this page, just click here to download it. So if I click on that point, it should get downloaded, which I will stop the downloading because I already have it installed on my PC, right? So your version that doesn't really doesn't really matter, right? Because my version is, of course, is different from the version that you likely have, because I have mine installed a very long time ago, and I'm not actually updated it just yet, right? But then whichever version you have, it doesn't really matter, all right? And like I said, the installation process is straightforward, right? The installation process is straightforward, and for some reason, I think my network is terrible and it's not loading up that page. So let's hold on. Network is something. Right, but I think the problem might be from my end. But basically, what you want to actually do is just to click on this URL here that says click here to download. So when you click on that, that will get it download. That will download the exe file for Windows, please. That's for Windows. So I just put this URL here on this file. So this is the URL that you have to go, right? For Windows, or for Windows users, for people that are using Windows. So basically, just go to that URL and then you do what? Click where it says click on where it says download, right? So basically, you click on this point. You click on this point here, and to get it, and it will be downloaded for you. So you will get the .exe file. Please see it. So it's similar to your Python file. So this is .exe file. So it's similar to something like this. Let me see if I can get one for you. So it's you have something like this. Let's see. So you have something like this, like VS Code, right? So he has something like this, but then for Git, right? And then what you want to do is just to double click on it, and then follow the installation prompt. So it's straightforward. But then if during installation you get to a point where it says add Git to path, please. If you see this point that say add Git to path for Windows user, please go ahead and check that box. Please check the box. Check that box, right? So that Git will be added to your command prompt. And then every other thing, leave it as default. Every other thing that you see, then you leave it as default. So just click on next, and that is that. So if this has actually if mine have installed I've actually shown you how to go about installing that on Windows. But for people on Linux and Mac, it's simple, it's straightforward, right? For people on that Mac, just simply just big this for Mac users. So you simply just say brew. I think you guys use brew, and then you have the brew installed, and then you git, right? That is that. That will get it installed and also add it to your path. So that is pretty straightforward for Mac users. And then on Linux, Linux is also very straightforward. You could just simply say Linux is sudo, right? So sudo apt and then install git. But that will also do what? Run the installation and do what? And add it to path. But for Windows user, please go to this URL and download the exe file. And then during your installation phase, if you see where it says add git to path, please add it to path. So let me try this one more time if I can download this, and I will walk us through the installation. So I'm not sure I have this installation file available. I'm not really sure. Let me see. Okay, so it's not available. I don't have it available. I don't have the installation file available. I would have run off to that installation. So for some reason, this is not installing. Probably, and sorry, this is not downloading. Probably it could be from my end, or it could be from. Yeah, I'm not sure it's on the site. I believe it's on my end. All right, but please confirm that you guys can actually hear me, please. Let it not be that what I'm saying is somehow not getting to you guys. I hope you guys are hearing me, right? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir.
All right. So for some reason, you guys can hear me, but I can't actually download it. I don't know why. All right. Please. Once you just get to this URL for Windows user and just click on that, sir. Maybe someone can just try it out from their end and let us know if it's from the page or it's from my end, right? But I believe it's from my end, right? I believe it's on my end, right? I believe it's on my end. But if someone can just try it from the end and let me know if it's working, right? But apart from that, that's basically all what you have to do to get a GitHub installed. Sorry, Git installed on your device. So so if once it's installed, you can just simply check for the version, right? So the version can be different from mine. So if I should come here and say git -- version, right? So that will give me the current version of it. So my current version is 2.47, right? So yours can be different. So after you've gotten this installation, you want to verify. So to verify installation, you simply just use the command git and then dash. So if yours is not coming up, right? If you actually run your installation, but then you can't get this to show up, right? If you're not getting the version of your Git from your command prompt, then you have to go back and reinstall it. Please, it will be more difficult if command prompt is not seeing your Git. It's difficult to work with it, right? Because most of the things is done from the command prompt, right? So you have to be available there. So if it's not showing, if it's not bringing up your version, please go back and reinstall this Git and look carefully. You will see where it says add git to path, right? You should see where it says add git to path. Please make sure that you. All right, so it's working. So Trump said that he has tried and it's working. So it means it's from my end. It means it's from my end. How am I streaming? But yet I can't download. How is that even possible? This country is something else. All right. Okay, so it's working. So that is the verification that means that URL is working just fine. So it's from my end. So please go there and then do what? Click on download, and then when you get the installation file, double click on it and then just follow the installation process. So everything it just leave everything as it is. Only check the box that says add to path. That if you see it, right? But I think this box is checked automatically. But just confirm if it's not checked automatically, then check it, please, right? And every other thing should be leave as it is. Leave it as default, right? So click on next, 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 next. You get to where it says install, and then it will get it installed for you, right? So it will also install it with its own command prompt. So you can have you get git bash, right? So these are the apps that comes alongside with that git installation, right? So git bash is similar to your command prompt, right? But then the way git bash works is that it's similar to Linux kind of operating system. So it means that your window commands will not work here. So if I was to cd into my desktop and then I want to actually see the available files in my desktop, right? In Windows command prompt, if I should do dir, well, it works as well, but that's surprising. That's surprising though. But then this command prompt is supposed to behave as it's supposed to behave. Okay, so this will also accept Linux core command, right? So it works with both your Windows command and your Linux command. All right. So most of the time I actually prefer using this particular command prompt, all right, because just in case we make mistake for a command that should work on Linux, so it can still work here. But then a command like this cannot work with your normal command prompt, right? So that's the benefit of also installing Git. So it comes with this wonderful command prompt that you can use. All right. So having that, I put in. So at this point, I was doing the one that we've installed and we are good to go. Right. So now, how do we now start using it? So before we start to see the practical use of Git, right? Let's understand some certain terminology. Right. So there's some certain things that you will hear people say. So it doesn't sound strange to you, right? So let's just talk about a few of them. So one of the things that you mostly hear when it comes to Git is repository, or yes, repository, or most people or you hear repo, right? So it doesn't matter. Both of them are the same, right? So repository, the repo here is a short form of repository. So it's basically a directory that's a track, basically a directory, or you could say a folder, right? Tracked by Git, right? So that's basically what a repo is. Let's go to let's assume that this is the folder that I want to track. So this folder means that if I start tracking this folder, say in KC 5.0, this become a repository or a repo. It means that everything within this folder, right, is being tracked by what? By Git. So it means that even if I make changes to any of that file, GitHub and Git is aware of that change. Even if I add a new file, Git is also what aware of that particular change, even if I add a new folder. But then what people don't really understand is that when they mean directory or should I say a folder that Git is tracking, they assume that it only refers to the file that lives within that folder. That even if you come here and add a new folder, let's say I come here and add a new folder, and let's say a new folder, I'll call this folder 1. That Git will not actually track this folder. No, Git will track that folder alongside with every other file that lives in that folder, right? So basically, from the parent folder to everything that lives within that folder is tracked. So even if you have folder inside another folder that contains files, all those folders and those files are tracked as far as they live within what the KC5 folder, right? As far as they live within that particular folder. So also that also tells us that when we want to do or track a particular folder, that we should be sure that is the folder that we want to track, right? So don't end up coming in here, right, to track the folder 1. At that point, everything that lives within folder 1 is the only thing that will get tracked. So it means that everything outside this folder, like every file here, is not being tracked at that point. So you need to understand when to do what, when to specify which folder, right? So that you don't end up specifying what the folder that should be within what the parent folder. So keep that in mind. So keep that in mind. That's basically what a repository is. And next thing you hear of people saying commit when it comes to Git. So commit is basically a snapshot of changes. A snapshot of changes. It's basically a snapshot of changes, right? Of changes. So what do I mean? I mean that let's assume that at this point, let's take a look at this file. At this point, let's assume that this is the current changes in this file, right? And I want to take a snapshot. A snapshot is like at this point, and this is the current point that we are in this file, right? And then so the thing is that commit comes gradually. It means that you can have as many commits as possible, right? So it means that at this point, if I should commit this file, it means that at this point, this is the current state of this file. That's what commit means. But then if I should come back again to this file and add a new thing, and let's say I add new line, right? What happens is that this becomes what this changes here becomes tracked again as a new change that has happened in that file. So as such, what do I do? I have to come back again and do what and take another screenshot. And so basically, what another snapshot. That's what another commit at this point. So at this point, we have two commits. The first commit is the one that have this current state. Now the second commit is the one that now have this other state with new file included. So now we see that we can do what we can now switch between which state and which other state do you want to roll back to. So that's basically what commit is, right? So it's basically like a snapshot of the current state of a file or a folder or an entire project. And of course, you can have as many commits as possible. Commit comes after every changes in a file. So if you change anything in a file, you have to do what? Take this current snapshot of that change. If not, Git is only aware of the one that that has been done, that has been snapped or that has been taken a snapshot of, right? So please keep that in mind. You can only have one repo, but then you can have several You can have several commits, right? But then you can have just one repo at a time with multiple commits, right? Another thing again that you hear again is branch. You hear of branch in GitHub. Branch is basically what a parallel. It's a parallel. No, sorry, don't know how it's parallel. It's a parallel version of a product, right? So of a product. So don't worry much about what branch is. I will show us quickly what a branch is. So it's more like making a copy of your project, but then in a separate directory, like in a parallel directory, which you can play around with that particular branch, and then you can choose to do what to merge it to its current branch. But don't worry about that concept. We will look at it soon. We look at it soon. And next thing again is merge. You hear of merge, right? Merge is basically combining branches. So I just said it now where we can do what merge. So we have merge basically mean combining branches. All right, and then we have staging area. Staging area is basically where changes are prepared before committing. All right, so that's yeah. And then we'll look at which point is that. We look at it real quick, and then you hear of remote. So remote is basically a version of the repository of the repo. So at this point, I can use repo. A version of the repo hosted on a server. Right? Which in this case, this server is GitHub, right? Which we'll talk about what GitHub is real soon. Right? Talk about what GitHub is real soon. And the next thing is that you will likely hear clone. So clone is basically like making a local copy of a remote repository. So making a local copy of a remote repo. So basically what I mean is that if you are cloning, you are basically copying a repo that is hosted on a server, but this time around to your device. That's basically what clone is, right? So and there are a lot of them, right? There are a lot of terminology, but these are the frequent ones that you likely hear as far as GitHub, about as Git and GitHub is concerned. You will likely hear this terminology, right? You will likely hear them a lot. All right, so now having that out of the way, we can be using these terms so that once you hear me use this term, please don't get lost. It's something that we briefly talk about, right? We briefly talk about. So let's see what needs to be let's see how we can use GitHub, right? Or let's see how we can use Git. let's see how we can use Git. All right. So hold on. So one thing is that if you are installing Git for the first time, right? If you are installing Git for the first time, you will likely need to configure your Git, right? You likely need to configure your Git, and yeah, you need to actually configure your Git by setting your username and your email. Now, this is used just in case you want to actually push things to a remote server like this. In this case, your GitHub, right? But then, if until that time where you intend to push, you can use Git as it is. But the moment you want to actually push to a remote server, you will be requested to do what, to configure your username and your email, and as well you also prepare to authenticate, right? But you don't worry about that. You will see how we can set that up, right? But then basically, what are the workflow of using a GitHub, right? Or sorry, of using Git. I don't know why I keep bringing GitHub. So the workflow of using Git is pretty simple. So basically, what you want to do, of course, is first of all is you choose you decide which folder which folder needs to be tracked, right? So after you've come up with that decision, you do what, you initialize and aim a Git there, a Git you initialize Git on at that point, right? And then after that, basically what you want to do is you want to move the changes to staging area. So at this point, you want to move changes, you want to move current changes. So move current changes to staging area, right? Staging area. So we know that we know what staging area is. A point where changes are prepared to be committed, that is to be taken a snapshot of, right? And then at that point, after you've done that, then you can do what, you can simply commit, right? That take the snapshot and you are done. That's basically the workflow of Git, right? Or of how to actually use Git. But then this workflow can as well extend. So what happens when you need to do new changes to a file? So new changes to a file, what would you now do? New changes to a file, to a repo file, or to a repo, brother. Let's use repo. So by new changes, I mean by is either you've edited a file, or you've added a file, or maybe you've deleted a file. That's basically what I mean by changes. So basically, in a folder where you decided to do what, to track, if you make any changes to that folder, what do you do? Do you also initialize this point again and then move to staging area and then commit? No, you don't have to follow this process all over again. The only thing you have to do at that point is to move the current changes to staging area, and then you do what, you commit. So you only initialize one time, right? You only initialize one time, but then every other change that you do what, you just move to staging area, and then you do what, you commit, right? And then you commit. So but then all these things still live within your local machine. You see, that's the bad thing. These things still live within your local machine. So for some reason, if your device should get spoiled, or let's say your one thing happened and you lose your entire files, it can be very painful because there's no way of getting it back, because all these things still live within your local machine. So at that point, it's now recommended that at times it is recommended, or it is better, it is also required that you make a copy of this folder, the same folder you have on your local machine. You make a copy of it on a hosted server, which in this case is GitHub. So that now, which we'll not talk about GitHub real quick. So what exactly is GitHub? GitHub is like a hosted server. It's like a server where you can save your files, where you can store your files. And to store your, so let me put down a simple note here. It's a server where you can save your files, where you can store your files. So that's basically what GitHub is, right? It's a server where you can store your files. And then in order for you to store these files, you need to do what? You have to have an account. You have to have an account with them. You have to have an account on GitHub. So how do you do that? You just simply go to your browser and just search for GitHub, right? And it should come up. It should be the first thing. It should be the first thing to come up. So just search for GitHub, and if you it should be the first URL on your browser. Right, so I already have my account logged in here. So let me just go to your browser. Let me go to a browser that I don't have account login. Right, so hold on. Let's go to a browser that doesn't have an account login. So let's try this other browser. Let's try this one. All right, so let's say GitHub. Sorry, hold on. Let's just search for GitHub. So I'm not sure I have any GitHub account here. All right, so there it is. All right, so when you click on this URL, so I'll copy this URL down there. So github.com. So we go to github.com. You basically just have to just the URL is github.com. Then what you want to do is I still have my account login here. So let me just log out this account. Okay, let me log out this account. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, it's not logged in. It's not logged in. Why was it showing up? Hold on. It's the other browser, sorry. Right. So basically, when you get to github.com, this is what you will have. And of course, you sign up like every other software, right? You click on sign up, and then you fill in your details, and then you follow their instruction, and you're good to go. So basically, you know what, you put in your email, your password, your username. So this username must be unique, right? So you will likely be doing trial and error. So like let's say if I try something like save your basic. Save your basic. So save your basic is a username that someone that already exists. So you cannot use it because that's my own username, right? So so what you do is that you keep trying of a name that is not available on GitHub, because every GitHub username must be unique. So you keep trying for a name so you can try something like this, and it's available, right? But then please don't do this, right? And find a nickname that you like and that you always remember, and use it as what as your username, and then you can put in your country, your email, and then you create account, right? So it's pretty straightforward, right? It's pretty straightforward, right? So once you have an account there, and you're good to go, you're good to go. So with that, you can start saving files, you can start saving your files on GitHub. That way, even if something goes wrong with your device, your files are still available on GitHub. So it's similar to your Google Drive, except that with Git you can interact with GitHub, right? So it's easier with GitHub, and also GitHub has a lot of features that Google Drive doesn't have, right? Like the feature of branching, right, and collaborative work. Google Drive doesn't really give that much flexibility. That's why GitHub is actually dominating in the field of programming, right? In the field of programming. All right, so let's go back and let's use this thing practically, right? So before we now start making a copy on our server, let's go ahead. Let's play around with our local files. Let's play around with Git in our local device. All right. So at this point, I want to assume that we've all installed Git, and then we don't want we follow the installation process fine, and we've added Git to our path. So I want to assume that is the case. All right. So now what do we do? How do we start keeping track of these files? All right. So to keep track of files, you do what? You simply remember. You know what? You decide on which folder needs to be tracked. So at this point, I want to keep track of our KodeCamp 5.0, right? This particular folder, this one, right? So basically, I want to keep track of this folder here. Basically, it means that I want to track if any file has been updated, if any files has been deleted, or if any files has been added, right? I basically want to keep track of all those changes, right, in this particular folder. Excuse me. So now what do? I will not do what I will not go to my not VS Code, right? I'll go to my command prompt and then do what I will navigate to where I have this folder, So this folder is available in my desktop, right? So what do? I can just simply change CD. CD means change directory. So change directory from where I am to where to desktop, right? See, and then what happens? I am now I'm now on desktop. So now, but then I want to track this folder KodeCamp 5.0. So what do? I can just simply do again CD and then change directory again to KodeCamp 5.0. So because 5.0, because that folder has spaces between them, I have to put that folder name in quotes, right? Because that folder name has spaces. But I think if you just do KC 5.0, it should work, right? But I'm not sure, but let's just try. Cool, right? Maybe it will work. Well, so fine, it works. So fine, it works. So don't have to actually put that in quotes, right? So at this point, I am currently in that folder. I am currently in the directory of that folder. So that this is the folder I want to know what to keep track of, right? That is the folder I want to keep track of. So you can do this. You can either do CD and then keep changing it like that till you get to that folder, or simply you can do what you can just copy this folder URL. So if you click on this URL here up there, you get the full URL of where that folder is on your hard drive. So you just copy that URL and then you go to your command prompt and just do CD one time and then you paste it and boom, you are there. You are in that directory, right? So whichever one works for you, then you can do what, use it. If you want to be changing it one by one like this to get to that particular folder, there's no problem. But then you can do what you can simply just copy the folder URL and just change directory down there one time, right? Now, when I am in that URL, right? When I am in that directory, what do I need to do? I need to initialize what a Git at that point. So that do what, and so that I'm telling Git, this is the folder that you do what that I want you to do what to keep track of for me. Right. So keep track of this folder for me. So how do I do this? You simply use the command git init, right? That is the git command that you intend to use, git init. So I have to come back here and do what, and say git on init, right? And then if I click on enter, what happens is that GitHub will do what, will automatically start keeping track of that folder. Automatically, it will start keeping track of that folder. So it means that if I should start doing any changes to that folder, GitHub knows. So at this point, you see that everything within our folder is green, right? Is green in color, right? So it means that at this point, that GitHub has started keeping track of that folder, and because we haven't taken any snapshots, so everything is fresh. Everything is still fresh as it is. That's why everything is in green. Right? That's why everything is showing green. So green means that file has not been tracked, right? Green means that file has just been added to that directory at this point, because at this point Git is just being aware of this files newly, right? Git is just being aware of this file newly. That's why it's showing in green. So, but then once we now move everything to staging area, then Git become aware of the file. Git become aware of that file. So how do we move things to staging area? We simply use the command git add, and then you can either choose to add a file name. So if you put a file name here, it means that you're adding that file alone, right? That's the only file that you want to prepare for snapshot. That's basically what it means. If I should just say git add and then I put the file name, it means that is the only file that I want Git to prepare for snapshot. Or I can simply just say dot. Dot means all the files, right? So it depends on you. If you intend to move all these files to snapshot points, then you do what, you simply use dot. But if you intend to move just one file to a snapshot point, then you do what, you simply use just the file name. So what do I mean? It means that if I should come here again and just say, and then I say git add, right? And then let's say I want to add mod.py. So it means that I only want to move mod.py to staging area. Making that file the only file available for snapshots to be taken, right? That's basically what it means. So if I should now click on enter, that is the only file that have been moved to staging area. So if I should now take a snapshot of that file, so if I should come here, so to take snapshot, you simply you simply say git commit, and then commit comes with a message, right? Every commit comes with a message. So the message is like, it's like a reminder of this was why you take this snapshot. That's basically what that message is means, right? So to add that message, you simply say -m, and then in quotation, in quote, you put the message. So in this case, the message will come in here, message, right? And then you cover your quote. So let's go back and let's do that. So if I should now come here and say git commit, and then -m, well, I only moved mod.py to staging area, and then I cover it, and then I click on enter. So it's about that it's only mod.py that has been kept track of, right? Only mod.py that has been kept track of. So that so far that in that file we have, and then if you go back to your VS Code, what happens is that is the only file that the color has changed. It means that is the only file that we've taken that we've taken track of, right? That we've kept track of so far. Every other file is still new to Git, right? Because we only specified that we should only add this man to staging area. So the rest of the file still looks new to Git. And even if I come here and do more changes here and come here and add more things, it doesn't really count it as a new changes, right? It doesn't count it as a new change, right? But then if I should go back to mod.py, right? And let's say I add, even if I add space, one space, what happened? The color changed to yellow. So yellow color means that Git is aware of that file, and as well as what is aware of the current changes in that file, or is aware of the new changes in that particular file. But every other green file that has swing days is like what is like a new file that has been added to Git, right? So Git is yet to be aware of the changes that occurred in that file. So far, the only file that it is aware of is what is our mod.py. Is our mod.py. So even if space, so even if the last thing has space, right? It keeps track of it. That's the beautiful thing about Git, right? And then I can do what I can simply just go back again and do what and commit that change, that new space. So what I can simply just go back again and just say git add again, right? So add means what? Move the current changes to what to staging area, or move that changes to what to a point where you are ready to want to take snapshot. And then I can do what I can simply just do what take the snapshot again. And then snapshot has been taken. So if I should go back again, the yellow should turn to what? White. It means that we are now aware of that space that was added, right? See that we are aware of that space that was added. But in most cases, we don't want to keep track of one file. In most cases, we want to keep track of all the files within that folder. So what do? You simply go again and do what? You say git add. We are. Sorry, let me just. So here you say git add. And then this time around, I want to use dot. So dot means move every file within this folder to a point where we can keep track of that changes. So if I click on enter, so every file, right, every file within that folder has been moved to staging area. It means that we are ready to do to take snapshots of the current changes, right? So at that point, I can come here and say my current my commit now. I can now come and do and take snapshot and say probably I can say I've moved everything, moved about to take snapshot, of our entire repo, right? And then I click on enter, and everything has been snapshot, and every file has been taken a snapshot of, right? Every file. So now if I should go back again, everything looks as if nothing really happened. So Git is now aware of all the files. So it means that any file I make changes now, Git is aware and see it as a new change or an update in that particular file. So even if I should go to, let's say, to our first code and then add in something, let's say hello, right? It flag it as a file that has a new change in it, right? It's like as a file that has a new change in it. As such, you can simply do that by just simply going back again. So most of the time, I like doing git add. Now git add will add all the files, right, that have new changes, excluding the one that doesn't have any change. So even if you should do git add, it doesn't mean that it will add all the files to staging part, right? It will only add the ones that have changes in them. So I will always recommend to do what to use dot, right? So dot will do what we only add the files that have multiple changes in them. So that way it saves you the stress of doing one by one. So if you had like multiple changes in multiple places, right? So it will be stressful of you doing git add first code.py, git add loop.py, right? It's way too much. But with git add dot, right? It adds all of them, only the one that have new changes in them, and then we'll move them to what to staging point, and from there we can do what take the snapshot all together, right? So git add again, and then I can put my commit. I can say a new commit, and then everything is done. So if I go back, we are all on the safe side, right? Everything has been tracked and everything has been and every snapshot has been what has been taken. Question before we proceed to moving this man to GitHub. Question so far. Question. All right, Stanley, your hand is up.
Good morning, sir. Can you hear me, please?
I can hear you.
Please, can you explain how to move your files to GitHub again? I got confused at the point and I didn't know what you were doing again.
All right, so we haven't gotten to a point where we can move our file from our local machine to GitHub yet, right? So we went back and we played around keeping track of changes on our local device. So we haven't gotten to that point. But in order to move your files to GitHub, of course, you have to do what you have to have an account on GitHub. So that's what I said. So you simply go to github.com and then you click on their sign up button. So the sign up button here. So it's either you click here, enter your mail here and click on sign up, or you do what you click on this sign up there, right? And then click on and then follow their prompt and create an account. So it's similar to creating a normal account on any other website, right? It's similar. So it's not a big something. Just go there and then fill in your details. So the only thing I said is that you have to do trial and error for username, right? Because every username has to be unique, and there are millions of people on GitHub. So it means that you have to guess a name that the millions of people have not used. So you have to come up with something. So if you come up with let's say Savior Bassi, for instance, Savior Bassi, right? This will not work because Savior Bassi has been taken, and that name has been taken by me. All right, so even that person cannot have that name. Probably can come and add like one if you want, if there's someone. Okay, so there's one, right? So you have to find something to add and make yours to be unique. That's basically what you have to keep in mind when choosing your username, right? But we haven't gotten to a point where we have to push our files down here just yet. But we will get there soon. You'll get there soon. All right. Mr. Trump, your hand is up.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I wanted to ask if it's possible to remove files once you have put them in the staging area or from Git in general.
Yes, it's possible to remove files. Yes, of course. Every file. Yeah, every files can be. You can remove. You can add files as well. So remember, I said that all those are considered as changes that happens. All those are changes that happens in your repository, right? There are changes that happen in your repository. So like now, I can come here and add a new file. Right? So if I come here and add, like, let's say I can say new file and .rs, that's Rust. And then you see that becomes a new file. So you see it shows as green, as meaning that the new file has been added to this directory. But keep in mind that even if I should put this new file outside the directory, Git is not aware of it, right? So Git is only aware of the files within this our KodeCamp 5.0 folder. So even if I move this file to inside this particular folder, then Git is still aware of that file. You see that Git is still aware of that file, right? So even if I move inside that tax2 folder there, Git is still aware of it. And even if I should delete a new file again, let's say I delete this file, let's find one file and delete. Which file should we delete? Let's delete this file. Let's delete name.txt. So if I should delete name.txt, so Git is still also aware of that deleting, right? Git is aware of it. So anytime you go to say Git, anytime you go to move them to staging area, right, and then you try to commit it, and Git will tell you that that one file was deleted, which is named.txt, and a new one was added, and so far only 2 files have been changed. You see, so everything is tracked. Yeah, everything is tracked. All right, Mr. Barry, your hand is up.
Okay, sir. So, like, what is not in like VS Code, like maybe a normal file? How will you know the thing? I don't know the file of it.
Okay, so I'm not sure I heard it properly. You said that what if what's that? Sorry, I didn't get the question clearly.
Then what if like it's not in VS Code, like you not deploy the Git to VS Code, like maybe in another file? How will you be keeping track? Because like this one that is VS Code, when you add another file, you're going to see it's going to change to green. So like what if it's in another file that's not in VS Code?
Yeah, of course, it doesn't really. It's showing green because that is the beauty of VS Code, right? VS Code just have a way of specifying files, right? But doesn't mean if you use another text editor, it may not actually show green, right? If you use another text editor, it may not actually show green. But then Git is aware of that fact that you added, so you can still, even if let's assume that I close my VS Code here, right? Let's assume that I've closed that file, and then I go to my, of course, here, and then come here and do and add a new file. Let's say I come here, copy this man. Let's say copy this image. Copy this image and go to this man. Good, and add it here. Right. Right. And Git is fully aware of that image. Right. Now the reason why Git is aware is because this folder contains what? It contains your Git. So this is when you did your Git repo, it creates this folder. So this folder by right should not show, but mine, I made sure that every hidden file should show on my device. That's why we are seeing this folder. This is where all the changes is being tracked. It's tracked to that folder, right? So everything you do, it lives in that folder there, right? So even if it's not in VS Code, sorry.
Yeah, so you say everything that like what I'm trying to say is that any changes that we make, you can see it in that .git folder.
Yes, all those information is available in .git folder. If I should delete that folder, then everything is gone. Everything is gone.
So, but on that let me see something.
Yeah, it just contains files that relate to Git, right? So you have nothing to actually worry yourself about this particular folder. By default, this folder should not even be showing. But I think I turn on the ability to show all hidden files. That's why that Monday is showing, right? So you have nothing to worry about yourself about that particular folder. But for any reason that you delete this folder, please know that everything that you've done so far is gone, and your folder will just be the way it is, right? Before you even introduce Git into that folder, it will be the way it is, right? So even if you delete this Git folder, it doesn't mean that your files will get deleted. It means that what that Git is no longer tracking that folder again, right? That Git is no longer tracking that repository again. That's basically what it means, right? So even if you add a new file like that image that I just did there, Git is still aware. As far as this folder is still there, Git is aware, right? So the VS Code is just to show you some visuals. It doesn't really mean that VS Code is somehow related to GitHub. No, right? It's just for the purpose of visual, right? It has nothing to do with Git. Git is a standalone software, right? It's a standalone application, right? And VS Code 2 is a standalone application, right? Python 2 is a standalone application, but each of them, but VS Code have a way of making all these things looks wonderful in our eyes, right? It has a way of making this thing looks wonderful in our eyes. So even if I should go now and want and keep track again, I can even check Git status. If there's a command called Git status, so it tells you if there is any current change in that directory. So if I should click on this, it shows that this file has been added, right? And it's yet to be a snapshot, or should I say a snapshot is yet to be taken. So this is the file that we just added, right? It said nothing added to commit, but on track file present, and which is this file. So we get status. You can tell if there is any new changes in your directory, right? And then from there, I can do I simply just say git add git commit, and then I'll add my message -m hello, enter. And then if I should do git status again, it said nothing, right? Nothing to commit. Working tree is clean, so there's no changes. Everything is up to date. That's basically what it means, right? Is that
Okay, sir.
understood? All right.
Yes, sir.
Any other question? So let me open up my VS Code again. Any other question? All right. So let's proceed. In the absence of any question, let us proceed. Right. So now let's see how we can move this man from how we can make a copy of this folder online, right, on a server, so that just in case, even if we something happens to our device, our copy of code is still available on GitHub. We can simply log in there and do what and get it available on our local machine. Easy peasy. Right. So let's see how that is done. Let's move to GitHub. Let's move this thing to GitHub. So how do we now move these things to GitHub? So it's pretty simple. So first of all, I want to also assume that we've created an account and we have an account on GitHub. All right. So let me cover this up. This is my movie. So let's create an account on GitHub. All right. So I already have an account. I have a demo account somewhere. Okay. So this is it. I have this demo account here, and we can use this. I think I use this account somewhere in KodeCamp. Yeah, so I've been using this in KodeCamp for a while now. So I have some. So far, I have for this particular account, I have a demo of should I say a repository of 31, right? Meaning what, a folder of 31, a directory of 31, right? 31 directories so far in this account, and you can have as many directories as possible. So, but I think there's a limit to a free account, because you want to go and please create a free account, please. I'm not sure that you would ever exhaust it. Please create a free account. Do not subscribe to anything, please. But there is a premium version of GitHub. I think it's for high-end users that has something heavy doing on GitHub that needs them, right? But then if you come here, you will basically see everything about so if you create your account, you basically see an overview of this. So if you see something like your list of repositories, and I think these are like the frequently used ones, or should I say the one that GitHub will just pick and put in the homepage, and then your profile picture will just show there. Your GitHub name will show there. Your GitHub username will show below, right? Your bar will show there, and then your contribution for the so if you want to see someone that write code almost every month, it's very easy to actually catch them, because everything you do actually shows here. There's like a heat map of how many times you've pushed code to GitHub. So you can see that from September all the way to about February, nothing came into this repository, right? But then on March we had a few things, but most things happen I think on Wednesday. If you look at this 22nd of August, I have like three. So I pushed stuff here 3 times, and so you can see that basically did like a heat map of people, of things, that of how many times you've pushed things to GitHub, and you can look by year. So you can switch by year and see. So it's very interesting. So I think the most active ones is 2023. 2023, I think I put a lot of stuff down here. 2022, nothing really much. 2021, nothing really much. But 2021 had absolutely nothing. Like nothing happened in 2021. Wonderful. All right, so you can basically just see those kinds of things here, right? But the whole point is that after creating your account, you should be able to see a point where you can do where you can create a repository. Before you make a copy of your folder from your local host, like from your local machine to GitHub, you have to create a folder that should hold that same folder on GitHub. So what do? You can simply go to where you have where you could simply just search for. You could search for but by if this account is fresh, if this is a new account, then you will simply just see a button that says create a repository. So it's very, very straightforward for you. But if you can't still see it, what you want to do is you want to click on your profile picture up there. Click on it, and you should see repository. So if you click on repository, it should take you to the list of repository. So in your case, it may be different, right? It may be empty. Yes, it will be empty. So what you want to do, you want to create on new. Click on new. So if you click on new, then you can create a folder, a directory, a repository, right? Anyhow you want to actually call it, a folder, a directory, a repository. It's one and the same thing. So it will give you a form and you fill for that folder. So that form will include your repo name. How do you want to call this folder? So in this case, I could call this KC 5.0. 5.0. So you can't have the same repo twice in your account. So if you already have a repo with this name, then you cannot have that same repo again. It's not possible, right? GitHub will not allow you to have the same repository twice. So GitHub will not allow you to have the same repository twice. So make sure that your repo name is actually unique, and you can choose to give a description of this repo if you want. It's up to you, and you can choose to make this repo public or private. But I would say if you're starting out as a developer, please keep your repo public, because most employer will likely want to go and see your source code, and it will be frustrating that you send them your GitHub profile URL, and on getting there, all your repos are private. Right? How would they now review your code writing and any other evaluation that they have in mind? So please, I would advise you keep it public, except you're working for someone and the person insisted that his product source code should be private. Then of course you can put it private. So if it's private, it means that someone cannot view the source code. If it's private, an external person cannot view the source code of this file. But for me, I'll leave mine public. And then you can choose to add a README file. A README file is more like an instruction of how, or should I say, additional information about the source code of this directory or of this repository. So you can choose to initialize it with that. It's up to you. There's no problem with that. Okay. And you can also choose to add a Git ignore file. We'll talk about what Git ignore file is, right? And of course, you can choose whatever licensing you want. So all those things are optional, right? But the only compulsory thing here is what is your repo name, right? That's the only compulsory thing there. And then I'll click on create repository. Create repository. All right, so at this point, we have a repository, should I say a folder, but this folder is empty. Now, if I should go back to my list of repository, it should increase from 31 to 32, right? If I should go back to repository, I should now have 32 repositories. So you can see I have 32 repository, but this one here is empty. If I click on it, there is no file in it, right? If I click on now, you see it's empty. There's nothing there, and there's no file in it. So the good thing, the good thing is that GitHub even go ahead to show you how to push your local repo down to GitHub, right? So this is the instruction depending on which level on which state you are at this point. Okay, so at this point we already have a repo locally, and we've already committed, right? And we don't even need to branch. The only thing we need now is to do what is to just do this. Is to just do this last two option. And that's basically all what you have to do. Right? That's basically all what you have to do to push, to move, or to make a copy of your local folder here in GitHub. Right. So what do we do? We simply do what? After everything has been snapshot, right? After every snapshot has been taken, right? After every snapshot has been taken here, right? And we are ready to do what? To make a copy on GitHub, we simply do what? We simply add a remote origin. So by that, I simply mean, so let's go back to our file. Let me add that to our file. So we're moving to, okay, so the workflow, and then right, new changes, and then moving to GitHub. Right, so I'll put this moving to GitHub. So moving to GitHub, or making a copy on GitHub, making a copy on GitHub. You do what? First of all, the first thing you need to do is you confirm that no new changes is available. All right, no new changes is available, so that you don't end up pushing the recent snapshot and leaving out so that you don't end up pushing the previous snapshot and end up not pushing the most recent snapshot, right? So you make sure you do what? You actually confirm that no new changes is available, right? And after that, you do what? You add, you connect, right? You connect your online repo, right, to your local repo, right? And then you do what? You push the changes, push the recent snapshot, push the changes to the online repo. So that's the only thing you need to do what to do. So far we have a new changes here, right? So remember, I'll comment that new changes, and then I'll do what? I'll connect, and then do what? Push, finish. Right, so let's do that. Let's do that real quick. So I will come here and do what? I'll do git status to make sure that nothing is wrong. So I have a new file or a new changes that has been done. So I will do what? I'll simply just say git add. This should be git, right? And I do git commit -m, and then final changes, and then click on enter, and then if I do git status again, there should be no new changes again, right? So everything is working, everything is clean. Everything is clean. So now what do we do? We push. So let's push. So I'll go back to our browser and do. Remember, to push, I have to connect. So how do you connect? You simply use the command git remote add. So this is the command that we use, and then your repo link. So to connect, you use this command git remote add, and then followed by your repo link. So the link of your repository, you can get it here. So if you're not sure, you can simply just, if you click on that repository, and then you would see you can get it here. So here it is, right? And it's still available also if it's a new one, right? If it's a new repository, of course, it still shows here. So this is how it is. So it's usually the format is usually this. All your this repo link follows this format. So the format is https github.com/ your username stays here, and then your repo name stays here, your repo name .git. So that is the format of your Git, of all your GitHub repo. So github.com/ your username, then your repo name .git, right? So in this case, this is mine. So I'll just simply do this, copy this, go to git remote add, and I'll paste this here, and that has been added, right? So it means that this directory is now connected. This local directory that I have here, our folder here, KodeCamp 5.0 code is now aware that we have a copy of itself online on GitHub, right? So that has established that connection. So what we need to do now is to push. So how do we push? We basically just say push git push -u origin master. So I prefer using master, of course, but the default branch is main, but I prefer using master. So I will say git remote to push. So let me put this here. Let me put this here for us. So we may likely have to track these changes again. So how do we track these changes? I'll come here again and I will say to push, we simply just say git remote push and then origin master, right? Origin master. And so master here is basically a branch name, right? A branch name. We'll talk about branches later. So what do we now do next? We simply come back again. We say git remote push origin master, right? Origin master. So in this case, our repo is empty. There is no branch at this point. There's no branch. So what these people did is that they just created a new branch right here, and then they push to that branch. But if I should just say git push origin master without putting this step, right, it will automatically create that branch and push it there. Remember, we said that what that branch is basically a parallel of our project itself, right? So he said what a parallel version of our project. So at this point, we have the branch that we want to push to is what is the master branch. Is the master branch. Like I like calling my master branch, and because I always intend to view this branch as my main branch, as the original branch in which my project should live on. So every other branch that comes in will likely be copying from this master branch, right? So that's basically why I like actually using master. You can choose to use main. So even if you put main there, right? Even if you put main here, what happens is that once you push this code, GitHub will do what? Git will do what? We'll create that branch and push it down there, right? And push it down there. So, but main, I'll go with master. You can choose main, right? It's developer's choice, right? So, and then after that, I have to do what? Click on enter, and this will do what? This will move everything that I have in this directory to my GitHub account. So this particular phase requires internet connection, right? This particular phase requires internet connection, and the bigger your file or the heavier your file, the more it takes time to push. So I will always say, please push. Do not push. Don't go and push full movie to GitHub, please. The same amount of file, the size of your file also determines the size of MB to take for what to push that file to GitHub, right? So please don't go and push one full system movie, or don't go and push one series and put it on GitHub. I'm like, I want to save it there, please, right? And don't do that. Don't do that, right? So far we are done. So this has done, and this has pushed to GitHub successfully. But keep in mind, if this is your first time of pushing to GitHub, right? If this is your first time of pushing to GitHub, what happens is that it will ask you to authenticate in your browser. So it will give you something like this. Let me see if I can get a visual. Let me see if I can get a visual. So you guys, so when you see it, you should be familiar with it. So let me Google up Git configuration. So it will ask you to configure first. That's configuration email config and not email, image. So let me see if I can get you an image. And then let's move to image section. Right, config, so something like this. All right, yeah. So once you want to push for the first time, it will ask you to configure your. So I'm looking for that message. We have it pop up. So it says. So let's see this one. It's taking time to load. But basically, it will ask you to set your configuration, and don't worry about it. It will show you the format in setting in configuring your username and email. So the format is like this. It's git config --global.user.name. So something like this. The format of configuring is something like this. So for first timers, for first time, git user. So to configure, it will be something like this: git config dash global and user dot name, and then in quotation your username, or however you want to be called, or however, because this username has nothing to do with your GitHub place. This username has nothing to do with your GitHub account. It's just that GitHub needs to know who is pushing, right? So that if you go to your GitHub account, you can tell who pushed this code down to your GitHub account. That's basically what this information is meant for. It has nothing to do with your GitHub account, right? It just for acknowledgement sake, so that we know who is pushing which code to where, right? So, and next thing you have another one for Git for user.email, and then your email will come in here. So that's basically what you need to do, and that is all about configuring. So for some reason this thing is not coming up, and it's looking small. It's looking very small. So it's not coming up as I expected it to come up. But don't worry, once you want to push it to that, you get that prompt, and this is what you should do, and this is what you should also do, and this is what you should do, right? This is what you should do to do what, to configure your details. And then when you want to also push again, it will ask you to authenticate to the GitHub account that you want to push to. So this one is pretty straightforward. It will ask you it will come up with something like press any key, something like this. Press any key to authenticate, something like that, authenticate to GitHub, So authenticate in browser, yeah, to GitHub, right? So that's something like this, right? But this is not like the full message, but something like this. So where it asks you to press any key on your command prompt. Of course, this is going to show on your command prompt. So tell you to press any key on your keyboard to do what, to authenticate on GitHub, because you cannot just push to any random GitHub account. You have to be the owner of that GitHub account, or you have to be a collaborator of that GitHub account. So now what do? You just click on any key, right? Any key at all of your choice. So this will bring you to, this will open up your default browser, the one that especially and so it means that you have to log in your GitHub account in your default browser, because by default it will open up in your default browser. So if you are logged in already, it should do what, it should automatically redirect you to what, to a point where it says you've been authenticated successfully. So you can go back to your command prompt. So at that point, then you can know what you can close that tab, right? You can close that tab and go back to your command prompt and do what, and push again by simply saying git push dash u origin master. At that point, your code should do what, should go through, right? At that point, your code should go through. So those are the two things that you need to set up if you are using this for the first time. So remember, this is for the first time, right? So after the first time, you don't have to set these things again. Right? After the first time, you don't have to set any of these things again, right? So it's just for the first time that you are using Git, right? So but then so as finished, we successfully send ours to GitHub. So we can simply go back to our GitHub account, and we should have that available now in our repository. So if I should refresh this page should now be filled with a copy of everything we have from our GitHub, and from our local repositories. So you see, it makes a lot of sense. So this is everything that we have, and this is everything that we have. And every commit message that we've done so far takes place shows on which file, or shows on the recent file that commit was made, right? So like this, like the last one I just did on this image, right? That commit was for just this image alone. So you said that message actually shows for just that image. So every commit messages that you put is actually going to show here, right? So it will show here as well, right? And that is basically the beauty of GitHub, all right? So and now everything you have on your local site is now available on this on GitHub server, right? So if you go back again to our project, and then we have a new changes here. So what do? Simple is you do what, you add again. You add again. You say git add dot, then you enter git commit, and then -m. I'll have newest changes, right? And then I click on enter, and then I do what? I don't have to add. Remember, this is done one time, so I don't have to add. I don't have to link it again to my online repo, right? I don't have I don't have to actually link it again to my online repo, right? Because that has been done, or that has been done already. So now what do I do? I can just simply push. I can just simply push and just say git push dash u origin master, right? And that will be pushed over to my GitHub repository. All right, that will be pushed. If I should refresh this now, I should have a new commit message of that recent one that we just finished doing, and that is available on our GitHub git and github.txt file. So where is it? Git and git. Where? Right. So there it is. Newest changes 1 minute ago. Right. So it means that this is the file that the changes just happened. Right. So that changes. If I click on it now, if I click on that file, I can see all that changes that just happened right there. So if I scroll down, see everything is now available. All right. Question. Question. All right. So the silence means no question. That's fantastic. So moving forward, right? Moving forward, our tasks will have to be submitted on GitHub, right? All your tasks. So whatever tasks you are given moving forward, I think the previous task is this new task actually requires you to do what? To push your code to GitHub. So you'll be submitting your GitHub repository URL, your GitHub repository URL. So how do you get this URL after you've pushed your code down here? So if you go to the code section, or you can see, you click on this code, this button down there. If you click on it, then you have your URL. So you copy this URL, and this is what you will submit for all your tasks. Please, in a case where one task have 5 questions, please push the 5 questions to one repo, because you can only submit one GitHub URL. You can only submit one link per task, right? So move all your tasks to one repo, and then submit that repo link. So don't want to push each question to a single repo. You will not have room to submit that repo URL. So what do you do? Move all the questions to one directory, and then keep track of just that directory, of other directory, and then submit it, move it to one repository, and then submit that repository link. That's basically what you'll be doing moving forward. Question before we wrap it up. Question before we wrap it up. Question. All right. So in the absence of question, okay, one more thing before we wrap it up. So let's assume that at some point, that your GitHub, that your device is crashed. How would you now work? You'll be thinking, would you go and click on the file and be editing this file from your online repository? Of course not. But though you can do that, you can come here and edit this. If I click on edit this file, I can edit this file directly here, right? But that would not be that wouldn't be too convenient to work with, especially if you're working on a bigger file and a bigger project. So coming to be editing one file at a time is too stressful. So what would you do? How would you now get this copy that is online to your local machine? It's simple. So remember, you do what? Get your GitHub repository link. So here I'll copy it, and then after copying it, how do you now get this copy down to my local machine? So what I'll do is, again, is I would go to my desktop, right, and then I would create another folder. This folder, I will call this folder repo copy, repo dash copy, right? Gabriel, your hand is up. Do you have a question? Mr. Gabriel, you have a question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, what I
Shoot.
want to ask is there a way to check other people's repo, like search maybe beginners
Yes.
like us, or see other people's repo
Yes.
without without them sending you link?
Without what?
Without them sending you their repo link or something like that.
Yes, you can check people's repo, of course. If I lay hands on your URL, if I lay hands, first of all, I have to know your I have to know your how do I call it? I have to know your username, and then I can just simply go to your GitHub account, and then I can view all your repo. Only the one that you've made public. So a typical example is that I can just go online and just say repos, GitHub repos. So I can just search for someone a random repos, right? Any random GitHub repo online. So like I'm looking, okay, let's say maybe I'm looking for someone repo. I'm looking for someone account. I'm looking for someone's account. Maybe let's just go to GitHub. You will see someone's account. So if I click on this trending on a repo that is trending today on GitHub. So these are people repos. So if I click on this guy, right? If I click on this guy, I can go to his profile. So if I click on his profile, so this is GitHub. This is his GitHub listing profile page, right? So your GitHub listing profile URL is www.github/your username. That is your GitHub. So just in case someone asks you to submit your GitHub profile, so it's www.github.com/your username. That is your GitHub profile, right? So if I should go there, which in this case is this guy's name, right? Is this guy's name being VPN Hood. So I can click on repositories, and then these are all the repositories that he has made available, public, right? So I can click on it, and I can see his source code. I can see the available code that he has here. So if I click on test, so you can see some VPN codes like that, and using assembly language. So you can see someone's code. So this is someone's code, right? So any public repo, you can view it. As far as you know, you know the person's username, you can just actually go there and view his open repository, right? His public repos. So it's not something that's hidden, right? It's something that anyone can view. Any other question? Any other question? All right. So let's see how we can get a copy of our online repo down to our local machine. So what I want to do is I create a folder, and then within this folder, this is where I want to put our online repo. Right? This is where I want to in this folder. So what do I do? Of course, I have to be in this folder in my command prompt. So I'll go to my command prompt, right? And then I'll just cd into that my new repo. And then what do? I use the command git clone. Git clone is a command that we use to do what? To copy your online repo or anybody's online repo. It doesn't necessarily need to be your own. It can be someone else's own, right? It can be someone else's own. So I can just go and clone it, right? I can go and clone it. And so the command is git clone, right? So getting someone repo or getting online repo locally. So the first step is either you do what you can either download it. That's the simplest one. Just download the folder, or you can just simply just say git clone and then followed by the repo link, link, right? And then so let's go with the span one. So I'll git clone and then paste the repo link. So git clone and then the repo link. The repo link here in this case I would go and copy it at the one that we have. I can even copy it. Let's copy it on. Let's try it with this guy on. So let's go and look at his code. So I'll go to his code section, and then I click on his code. So hopefully that this file is simple and not that heavy. So I can copy and I can paste it here. Remember, please, there should be space after your clone, please. So put the space there. Clone. Sorry. All right, and then enter. So that will do what? That will clone that will basically copy everything from that repo and have it on my local machine, right? And if I even want, I can remove his GitHub a link and put my own and pull this code to my own repository, right? And make it look as if it's me that wrote the code. Easy peasy. So all those things is possible with GitHub, right? You can actually clone and do and make changes and push it to your own end, right? And push it to your own repository, right? It's possible, right? It's possible. It's possible. So that's the, but that will be like the collaborative part of GitHub, which we'll talk about some other time, right? But for this particular class, I was more focused on the basics of getting our files tracked and making our files available on GitHub and ready for task submission. So far, what we've learned so far, I am comfortable. I'm comfortable to say that we can keep track of our files, push it to GitHub, and submit our tasks, right? And don't worry, as we proceed towards the end of the bootcamp, we will talk about the collaborative part of GitHub, which is actually required for us to work with other team members, because at some point we will start working with front end guys and UI UX designer guys and rest of them, and everybody will use one single GitHub repository account. So you start to do what you start to know how to do branching and merging and collaborative kind of stuff on GitHub, which I'll leave that one for now. We'll talk about it later in our subsequent classes, right? Does someone have a question? Does someone have a question? All right. So let's go back and let's see our cloning if we are done. So our cloning is done and we have everything fully available on here. So you can see we have everything, right? Everything is available. Everything that is there is available on our local machine. So same thing is applicable if you want to clone your own repository. You can still do that, right? You can still do that. There's no problem. There's no problem. All right. So question. All right, so in the absence of question, we will wrap this class to an end. Returning this class pertaining to Git and GitHub, and we'll bring it to an end. And I don't know, because we have a task available on LMS, and I think the deadline is about in 3 days time, I think. So, but I would actually love us to have maybe a 1 hour session, maybe tomorrow. I don't know if that will interfere with our tasks. 1 hour session, let's look at briefly an intro to backend, right? So that when we come in next week, we can kick off fully, right? We can kick off fully, and without the theoretical aspect, because basically just 1 hour of theory, right? Just 1 hour of theoretical, probably small practical, right, of how backend works, and have the understanding of how this thing of how requests is being sent and how response is also being sent out and stuff like that. An answer on it is enough. So I don't know. Maybe you guys can just let me know on the group if that would be convenient for us. All right. So just let me know on the group if that is convenient or if that will not interfere with our tasks. I think what I can actually do again to aid us is that maybe I can go and put in, because we have like 5 tasks there, right? As usual. So maybe I can just put in an instruction that says answer any 3. All right. So it lessens, and so it doesn't really put enough burden on us that much, because basically the task is almost the same task that we've been doing previously. The only difference is that we now have to push it to GitHub and submit in a link, right? So it's more like us doing the same thing twice. It's almost the same code, right? It's almost the same pattern of everything that we've been doing so far, right? So maybe I can just go and put in to solve any 3 and leave out 2, and then put that 3 to GitHub and submit your GitHub repository. Maybe that way we can have some more time so that we can hold that 1 hour session, right? Just briefing, and maybe small practical, right? And maybe small practical. tomorrow, well, I think there's a free period tomorrow from, I think, from 12 to 4 p.m. I think. So maybe from maybe 12 to 1, or maybe 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Anyone that's convenient for us, we can just pick one day and then we look at it so that we can be up to date with our curriculum. Remember, we sacrificed the whole of last week for correction, and we only have one session this week. So, but the lot of last week wasn't really a problem because throughout last week, I think we were supposed to build a student management system together as a mini project, but the correction has covered for that project, so that's not really a problem. But then we are this week we're supposed to actually kickstart with writing fast API, right? At least writing a basic fast API code and an intro, kind of, but not to worry. We will cover all those things, right? And then we'll not to actually rush it. So we take it bit by bit. But trust me, we'll cover it up. That curriculum looks lengthy, but trust me, those concepts are easy, right? In one class, we can basically cover like 3 portions of that curriculum. Right? So what you're just saying there are just grammatical grammars up and down, but just the whole thing, the whole concept is straightforward, right? So please let me know on the group if that is available. So for the GitHub, for the files that I said that I'll give to us, thanks to GitHub, we don't have to push it again to this thing. We don't have to push it again to Google Drive. So you can just simply come here and download it. So how do you download? You can just come here. So you can either download here. So you see it says you download the zip file. So you can either download here, or you can just copy this URL and then you do what you just go and clone, right? You just go and clone. So this is that is the repo. So basically, all our classes that we'll be doing, we'll be committing and pushing to GitHub. So we can always come back and clone or download and have a copy of the source code. So this is the URL. You can just actually go there and clone it or download it, whichever one works for you. Right, so that URL contains all the files that we've done so far from the beginning of our coding. So everything is available there. Everything. That's a big file. But this file, I'm not really sure what kind of image is that, but maybe at some point I'll come back and I'll visit that image out. Maybe I can just do it now. Let me just do that image out, please. I'm not sure what image is that. All right, but so far that's for today's class. So the repo link is there. You can clone it. You can download it. Whichever one works for you, you can just do it. All right, whichever one works for you. So I'll delete this man. So I'll delete this man out. Delete, and then I'll push the current version of it. So I don't want this. I want the other one. All right. So git add, git commit, git push. Right, so that should now carry the latest version without that image. Right, so if you come back and refresh, that image should no longer be there. That image should no longer be there. Right, so please get the repo link there and get it, clone it, work with it, and I'll see you guys in our next class. Probably in our next class we can still create small spare time and solve classes. The last task that I said that we look at, right? So you can just create a small space in that class and look at that correction of classes, right? And so you can wrap it up fully for the correction. So you can wrap it up fully for the correction. All right. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? All right, so there's no question. Silence means there's no question. All right, so see you guys maybe tomorrow if that's convenient for you guys, and whatever the case is, just let me know. All right, but for now, have a fantastic day and bye for now. All right, please copy this GitHub URL because once I end the call, it's gone. Please don't forget. Don't forget to copy the GitHub URL when the code is done.